Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. And in this video I'd like to share some street photography tips. Simply because street photography is my favorite genre of photography and there's always room for a couple of more tips, even though YouTube is already full of street photography tips and tricks videos. So here goes in no particular order. My first tip is to choose or decide your own approach. At least when you're starting out, do not force yourself to do or make pictures that don't come naturally. Shoot something that is relatively easy or feels good to you. Your approach may evolve and develop over time, but when you're starting out, do not stress out or try to copy someone else's work or try to shoot similar pictures as someone else is shooting, if that doesn't feel good or you don't feel comfortable doing that. We like to say that you should get out of your comfort zone, but that's not always true. Street photography for many is already quite intimidating, and people often, at least from what I've heard and read the comments down below, street photography is often an awkward situation for many already as it is. So I don't think you should make it even more complicated or even more awkward by trying to shoot something that doesn't come out naturally or you feel uncomfortable with. And like I said, your own style or approach may develop over time and you'll feel more comfortable in certain situations that you did not feel comfortable when you started out. So take it easy and shoot at the start, at least shoot whatever comes out naturally and you feel comfortable with. My tip number 2 is that do not photograph people if that doesn't feel good. Again, what I've heard in face-to-face conversations and also what I've read in the comments down below, taking pictures of strangers on the street doesn't feel good for many of you. And then if that doesn't feel good, don't force yourself into that, because people are not necessary in street photos. It is true that many street photos, and especially many classic street photos, they do include people, but I don't think people are necessary. And when you're starting out, just look for light and shapes and shadows and stuff like that, and include people that are a little bit further away from your camera, and maybe that makes you feel more comfortable. And over time, when you get more acquainted with street photography, maybe you feel more comfortable with approaching people directly and maybe even ask if you can take their portrait or something. In some cultures, people don't mind being photographed, but then again, in some cultures, people are very suspicious and they don't like to be photographed. So you just have to play by ear and sense the situation and act accordingly wherever you are. And the truth is that in most cases, people simply don't notice one person with a camera because they have other things on their minds when they are doing whatever they are doing, when they are walking down the street or standing on the street corner or whatever. Of course, when you are standing there in the middle of the street with a camera, it feels like everyone is staring at you, but in real life, that is not the case. People are minding their own business, and in most cases, they simply don't even notice you, and they don't notice that you are taking pictures. My next tip, I think this is number 3 now, is learn to see and observe your surroundings. It's very important in street photography to be able to observe what is happening around you, and also to some extent predict what is going to happen. I mean, if you see that something is happening right there, now, you're already late with your camera. But if you can predict that something is going to happen soon, then you might be able to capture that. I mean, if you see, let's say, 2 people walking down the street, and you'll see that they are going to sort of encounter each other's under a certain sign or whatever, then you can be ready with your camera and you'll maybe able to capture something really good. But if you see those people actually passing by under that sign already, then you're late. So in street photography, it's vital to be able to see things, observe what is happening. It's vital to be able to act quickly if necessary, and it's also vital to be able to predict things, at least to some extent. The next tip, number 4, is my only gear related tip in this video. And my tip is keep your gear setup simple. Of course, what is simple, that is personal, but my favorite gear setup for street photography, or my favorite camera, is by far the Ricoh GR3 or the GR3X. These two little cameras are by far the best cameras for street photography in my opinion. But sometimes I take my Lumix GX9 with a 25mm or 14mm lens, or sometimes I take my Fuji X-T30 with a 30mm Sigma lens, or sometimes I'll take my Sony a7 IV that I'm using to film this video. And for the Sony I have a 28 and 50mm prime lenses and also a 40mm, and as you may have guessed, my favorite setup is one camera and one prime lens. But it can be also something else, like the Micro Four Thirds camera with a zoom lens, or whatever camera with a zoom lens, or something else. But keep it so simple that it does not interfere with your photography, or it's not a distraction. And also learn your gear so well that you can use it, with your eyes closed and hands behind your back. And when you are free of camera distractions, you'll be able to observe your surroundings better, and you'll be able to make better pictures, most likely. And now the tip number 5. Light, subject, composition and timing. Those are the elements that are fundamental in every photograph, and those are the elements that we are looking for whenever we are taking pictures. No matter what kind of pictures we are taking, even in a studio you sort of chase the same elements, but in the studio you can put it together like manually. You set up the lights and your subject and everything so that that particular decisive moment or those elements kind of come together and you get the perfect shot. But when we're out there on the street, we have to look for those elements, and we have to be able to see when those, or at least some of those elements, are in the picture and they come together, and then we hit the shutter. And as long as you're able to see those elements, you're bound to take a great street photo sooner or later. But you have to be patient, because those great moments, they simply don't happen every day or not every week. But when that happens, it feels so good. Documentary and street are my favorite genres of photography, because I like to go out and see things with my own eyes and experience things, and then I like to record them with my camera if I only can. And those are also the genres that AI can never replace or ruin, because to be able to document things I have to be there and record what I actually see. There's been a lot of talk about AI ruining photography, but I don't think it can ever ruin documentary photography or any recreational photography, because most recreational photographers record their own life and they record what they see, and those kinds of events cannot be generated by AI from scratch, because then it would not be the same real event that we saw and recorded. This is all I have for you today, and please do leave your street photo tips or experiences in the comments down below. I'd like to read those as usual. And if you found this video useful or entertaining, please do consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that if you don't live in Finland. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll definitely see you in the next one.